welcome back, Flickers, to Far Out Flicks.
Keep on flicking.
Keep on flicking, that's what I always say. I'm your host, Andrew, here with...
I'm your host, Braden, and we're going to talk about the movie Blade Runner today.
Yeah, Blade Runner. Get right into it.
Blade Runner's dope.
Blade Runner is dope. First off, thank you to everybody who listened to episode 1 of season 2, The Shining. And I thought that sparked joy in my heart to see people listening.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you from us to you, the listeners.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of a crossover because in the Shining episode, we actually mentioned Blade Runner.
We do. I'll bet only briefly and just regarding literally the opening scene of the movie, but...
Hey now, we still talked about it.
You're right, we did.
And today we're going to talk about it at length.
You're right. I was actually going to mention that we talked about it last week's episode too, and you beat me to it. And
yeah, how dare you condescend me.
That was my plan. I was just upset that you said it first. But anyways.
It's okay. It happens. That happens all the time.
It does happen.
It's not like that's that juicy of a tidbit.
It's not. But it was a callback to that episode. So, I mean, I guess the objective was achieved. You know.
So, would you like to tell our listeners the basis of the movie Blade Runner?
Is in what it's based off of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's at least largely inspired by Philip K. Dick's Do Android Dream Electric Sheep.
Exactly. Philip K. Dick is the man.
Philip K. Dick is the man.
I feel like the film and TV adaptations have overshadowed his actual novels and short stories, but like what are some other ones? There's A Scanner Darkly, Total Recall.
As to ones that have been turned into films, yes. Oh, man, there was another one.
There's a bunch. Minority Report,
yeah.
I feel like that's the only one I haven't seen because I just hate Tom Cruise that much.
Yeah, I kind of get it.
I don't want to support Scientology. Where do you think the proceeds of those films go?
You're right, but was he a Scientologist when it was made? When did Tom Cruise convert to Scientology?
It's a good question.
These are the important questions.
I mean, Scientology's been around a long time, and actually there's more of a link between Scientology and Blade Runner, actually.
Okay, well, you're making me nervous just talking about it, so let's...
Because part of... Oh, you don't want to be gang stalked, is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Actually, here's a nod to Scientology. Philip K. Dick, one of the inspirations was actually an L. Ron Hubbard short story called Fear, which was critically acclaimed, and Stephen King has also said it's an influence, so don't let anyone ever tell you that he was a bad writer,
I don't think...
Because apparently he had some influential fiction beyond just Dianetics.
Just beyond Dianetics, yeah. I don't think anybody's accusing him of not having some influential texts that have come out.
Oh, man. But also, it's interesting because Philip K. Dick was researching for another thing, and he was actually reading Nazi SS war diaries.
Weird.
And he was talking about... I saw an interview with him in a documentary where he was talking about... The SS officer was writing about how the screams of children were annoying at night because they kept him awake, and it got Dick thinking about how they totally lacked empathy and were almost non-human, and that was also an inspiration for the ideas of androids walking among us, having no empathy
or no emotions. I guess
exactly.
Yeah. To take it down a whole nother step beyond even just empathy. Yeah, man, Philip K. Dick, obviously very, very influential, multi-Hugo Award winner, and whatever the other big one is, Nebula.
Yep, I believe.
Yep.
Oh yeah, super influential on all of science fiction. It cannot be overstated, the man's influence. in the genre.
Yeah. But
And he was pretty totally insane and like had voices like telling him about all this cool stuff. So that's pretty neat.
that's creative putting the eccentric in genius, huh? So as much as I would love to gush about Philip K. Dick,
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
yeah,
really.
we don't talk about books here. I don't want to read. Let's talk about Ridley Scott.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's the right direction.
This is coming right off the heels of Alien, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another masterpiece, far out flick.
And actually, just to, I said we were going to go to Ridley Scott. One additional item about Philip K. Dick. Blade Runner is what brought Philip K. Dick kind of into the Hollywood sphere. And then all those other titles that we listed that were made were basically as a result of this film.
Yes, because it was wildly popular, I believe.
Yep.
Actually, I don't know that it was that popular when it was first released, but it since has become hailed as one of the greatest sci-fi classics of all time.
Yeah, and was like had the highest or one of the highest like video rental stats of any movie. And then of course all the versions, but we'll get to that. But Ridley Scott, man, Alien is. I mean, I don't want to talk about Alien too much because we're going to do it eventually. But like,
Eventually, we have to do that one.
yeah, Alien is so freaking good.
So we could leave Alien there, but interestingly enough, Ridley Scott was actually originally signed on to make the Dune film.
Man,
Another failed Dune film.
well,
And he was replaced by David Lynch. And that's when he signed on for Blade Runner.
I like Lynch's Dune. You know, there's a lot of criticisms that are valid, especially from the hardcore.
Jodorowsky.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, famously,
But also, the Lynch Dune, it's kind of messy. I mean...
yeah, while we're on Jodorowsky, you know, like allegedly a lot of the, and, you know, this is allegedly, I want to put a big asterisk there. A lot of, like, the visuals for this film were heavily borrowed from Jodorowsky's storybook or whatever.
Very interesting. I've seen some of that concept art, and didn't they even bring on like Salvador Dali to do some of it? And
yeah, and he was also playing the Emperor, but that's Dune. So rewind a whole bunch away from two.
no, it's good. I like connecting all the dots. You know, I think that's a fun part of it.
Yeah, you're right. It is. That's what you guys are listening for, right? You could just read the Wikipedia page or like a few other articles if you just wanted the details. You're here for the insights.
We'll try.
We'll try.
I've seen all these movies, so if that's not a resume, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's. Here's my resume. It's a list of the movies I've watched across the course of my lifetime. Pay me money.
Yep.
Pay me money
so
now.
please let me work at this Blockbuster.
There's only one left, man. You have to relocate.
I saw a red box the other day. Anyway, continuing.
So coming off of Alien, which was a huge success, Blade Runner, you know, what I think that like led to it critically not being as successful at the time, and you know, I can tell you this as a child when I first watched this with my dad, when I think like the director's cut came out on DVD or whatever, and my dad just got a DVD player, and it was like $400 or something stupid. You know, way back then. We watched it, and you know, he was like hyping it up. He was saying how it was a cult classic and all this stuff, because my dad loved movies. And you know, I watched it, and yeah, but like 8-year-old me was like, what the fuck is all the hype about? Like, I wasn't that blown away. It was cool. I could acknowledge that there was a lot of cool stuff, but it kind of just looked, you know, there wasn't a lot of action. And that's like what I, at that point in my life, expected from a sci-fi movie, was like a lot of
Exactly.
action.
And also, you're kind of expecting some kind of Star Wars thing, and it's just not that.
Yeah, that was my frame of reference at that point, was like Star Wars.
And you got Harrison Ford, and it's kind of one of his big follow-ups to the Star Wars franchise. And I'm sure I'd already seen Star Wars at that point.
Yeah, I was so excited that Han Solo and Indiana Jones was in this movie that my dad was excited to share with me. Now,
And there wasn't a single Jim Henson Muppet in the whole thing.
not one, not a single one. So yeah, that I think played into it, as well as just like it being kind of tough subject matter, especially like, you know, how many like philosophical works dressed up as a sci-fi film had been like released to the American, audience. Like maybe 2001: A Space Odyssey at that point.
Right.
And maybe some other stuff that's like just not jumping out to me, or like, it was just less, the film's less about action and it's more about like the visual spectacle, as well as like the philosophical and ethical kind of like paths that the film goes down.
Sure. And I would say it's a pretty subtle movie, It's not, they don't just come right out and say a lot of things. And
Now,
even the ones they do say, you kind of have to be paying pretty close attention.
Now, what I did like about the film, even as a child, and what I like about it today, and to include the other genre that I would associate this with, it is like effectively a noir film. So, because our main character is a detective, and it's got all the classic noir elements, like it rains all the damn time, and it's kind of seedy, and there's urban decay, and freaking shady street corners with a lone lamppost, detective in the overcoat. The film centers around a future in which basically androids are a thing, and they're made and they're used as like effectively slave labor for all like the shitty, dangerous jobs throughout the galaxy where mankind's managed to expand out to. So like mining operations or like military excursions or whatever, they're just sent to go do like the worst stuff. Sex work, I'm pretty sure, like on mining facilities, so on. Not that sex work is bad, but it was certainly less welcomed in the American consciousness in 1982 than it is today.
Well, and the movie takes place in 2019, and they were assuming, there'd be sex robots by now. And basically there are. They're just not as advanced as the ones in this movie.
I was going to say, they were spot on.
Presumably they might be in like 50 or 100 years.
Yeah, we're going to have sex robots way before we have flying cars in the like average American consumer's driveway. So, Jetsons
Exactly.
way off. Blade Runner a little bit on target. So yeah, I mean, huge corporate takeover. Corporations are essentially like states, which is probably not that far from the truth currently. And
It's kind of dystopian,
it's very dystopian. The film takes place in L.A., which like there's a lot of beautiful advancements of the future present everywhere in the film, but like it's juxtaposed with like decaying old parts. It's all retrofitted, and like something that I think is like worth noting is like all the most beautiful, most futuristic things are basically like corporate advertisements.
Yes.
Everything else, like all the seedy underfooting of like where the people live is pretty, it's rainy, there's like sewage shit everywhere, it's overpopulated, packed like a sardines in a can, and then 200 feet in the air there's a massive hologram of Coca-Cola. There were a number of companies, including Coca-Cola, that were featured in the film that all did very poorly after the film was released.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
That's hilarious.
yeah, the curse of Blade Runner, including Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola didn't go under because they're huge, but they like saw a pretty significant dip, and you have to wonder if like it rubbed people the wrong way seeing that in this film because it is dystopic. It's it's not a future that I really want to. I mean, I kind of want to live in it. It'd be kind of cool to get that whole cyberpunk thing going, but you know,
Sure. I mean, it's associating these big brands with this dystopian future. I mean,
I like
whether it's on a subconscious level or what.
I like plant life, like national parks.
Yeah, plants are cool.
So, anyways, back to these androids. They're called replicants. They're made by the Tyrell Corporation, which is one of the biggest and most powerful companies on the globe.
It's basically Amazon. Let's be real.
It's basically Amazon. But some of these replicants have basically escaped and made it back to Earth. So there are special cops. There's cops everywhere. Like the police force is fully militarized and omnipresent. Which, spot on. Good job, Blade Runner.
Yep.
But some of these replicants, from time to time cause problems or like get back to Earth or escape or whatever. And Blade Runners are these specialized cops who track them down and retire the units, i.e. kill them. So the film starts out, with the pretext telling us that 4 replicants have made it to Earth. Cue Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, and his name in the movie is Rick Deckard.
Yeah, Deckard. We will just
Deckard. And Deckard is like a private eye, basically. He's like a gumshoe or something. But I mean, he's a Blade Runner, but that's what it's based off of. And
he was a Blade Runner. He was no longer a Blade Runner at the start of the film.
Do they ever explain like what happened or?
No, and that's part of it, man. And we could talk about it now, but I really want to get to that later after we get a little bit deeper into the film.
Gotcha.
But
well,
yeah,
he reluctantly kind of gets dragged back to the police station to meet with his former commanding officer, right?
Yeah, and they show him a video of another Blade Runner performing the Voight-Kampff test with Leon, who's one of the replicants. And the Voight-Kampff test is essentially a series of questions with like a camera focusing in on like the subject's retina, as well as monitoring, a bunch of other things, heart rate, whatever. But it's mostly to measure emotional responses to questions, and that's like how they can determine if a replicant is, or if a subject is a replicant, or if it's a human.
Because they're otherwise indistinguishable.
Yes. Other than the fact that they're much stronger and like superior in pretty much every single way. Smarter, stronger. They're just not human. And don't really have emotions. So
this scene's pretty badass.
Yeah. So while they're administering the test, on the second question, Leon shoots and kills the Blade Runner and escapes. So that's like, here's where our character is brought in. He's brought in to track down these replicants, one of which who's just killed a Blade Runner. And
it's interesting because one of the first questions I had was like, why would they make them so indistinguishable from humans? It seems like that's a bad idea.
It does.
Is that not a design flaw?
I mean, for like the sex work thing, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to be indistinguishable from humans.
That makes sense. And, sure.
So, anyways, Harrison Ford, like, reluctantly agrees to, take this on, essentially. I mean, I feel like this is like Harrison Ford, not even method acting, just being himself kind of on camera at this point, which like maybe he was always just himself on camera. I feel like that might just be kind of the case.
Apparently it was kind of an asshole and everyone hated him during this filming of this.
That doesn't sound totally unbelievable at all. I love Harrison Ford. I just wish you weren't such a grump.
Yeah, he was a difficult actor to work with. if it didn't match his artistic vision, he just became problematic.
Yeah, and
Which was a thing going throughout the whole film, I think. Like, the production studio and the investors had different ideas than, like, Ridley Scott, and hence why we have so many different versions of the movie that have been released over the years.
7 total different versions.
That's so many.
That is so many. And we'll just to run through all the versions real quickly. There's the work print prototype version, 1982. It was released as the original director's cut without the approval of Ridley Scott.
How could you do a director's cut without the approval of the director? That's ridiculous.
Studios, dude, studios. So
Hilarious.
Yeah, it is. So it had like fairly negative responses, which led to the changes that would become the U.S. theatrical release. But before that, there's the San Diego sneak peek preview version, also 1982. It was May of 1982. And it's basically identical, except it included 3 additional scenes that have not been or shown in the print prototype or in any of the subsequent ones. So I don't actually...
So some lost scenes, basically.
Lost scenes, and they're not part of the final cut. And then after that, there's the U.S. theatrical release, the 1982 happy ending version with the famous Harrison Ford voiceover, the narration.
The thing that he like hated doing and like refused to do and like tried to like shut down the whole production over.
Allegedly, he has come out and said that he did not sandbag it. It was just bad narration, which I agree. And the ending's stupid. So this ending, which it'll make more sense when we get to the end, but this ending is the happy ending where our heroes just drive off into like a beautiful, pristine mountain range, which doesn't make any sense.
Used for the opening shot in The Shining.
Correct. Bringing it all back full circle. They used some of the unused footage from The Shining's.
Not to steal your fact again.
Yeah,
your
fucking
factoid.
Fact stealer, man.
They're on the internet and they're free for everybody.
But yeah, it's this like really bizarre happy ending. And, not that the ending of the film is not somewhat happy, but this is like a hyper happy, like, cliche ending that just like makes absolutely no sense with the rest of the film. And again, yeah, if you haven't ever seen this, I'm assuming
I haven't seen that one.
Well, okay, we're assuming that you've seen Blade Runner if you're listening to this, or at least like are intrigued enough to watch it as soon as you finish. But when you finish Blade Runner, like seek this out online and just savor it, man, because it's really bad. It's really really bad.
So how many versions is that?
That's 3. There's the international theatrical release in 1982 that has some more violent action scenes than the U.S. theatrical version.
Oh, okay. I might be down with that.
The U.S. broadcast version, 1986, which was edited by CBS to tone down the violence, profanity, and nudity to meet broadcast restrictions. Then there's the director's cut in 1992, which was prompted by the unauthorized 1990-91 theatrical release of the work print version of the movie. This is like what brought it to like really cult status, I would say, and led to it having such like high video rentals, which in part led to it being one of the first films converted to the DVD format, which only further accelerated its cult status. And then lastly, the final cut, which came out in 2007. Okay,
that's the one I just watched.
Yep. So we got through it. Hooray!
I mean, I will say this: thank God he didn't like pull a George Lucas and like add in a bunch of
like sloppy
shitty
CGI.
90s CGI.
It's so bad, dude.
Because I mean, this movie has some of the greatest like special effects ever, and they're like pretty primitive.
It's aged
but they
beautifully.
Look good.
Yeah, it's aged very well, like a fine wine.
I mean, the visuals of this movie like really set the standard for the cyberpunk aesthetic, and it's almost like a trope at this point. But
Yeah, and for the listeners at home who've been with us for a while, if you haven't put it together, like I'm a sucker for good practical effects and like films that are very special effects oriented from yesteryear that have aged well. That I mean, just like there's something about it that just like ooh, it's just mwah.
Looks better. I
Me
mean,
me amor.
you
You
have
know?
actors actually interacting with physical things. Of course, it's gonna have a different performance.
Yes. So Har- Harrison Ford begrudgingly accepts the assignments, and gets on the case because again, detective noir film. Uh, so after he like basically gets up with it, Bryant has Deckard meet with the CEO of the Tyrell Company, Eldon Tyrell, who will be just referred to as Tyrell for the rest of this podcast.
And this is like the classic noir kind of trope, you know? He's being summoned up to the head of some large corporation to do the assignment, kind of like Chinatown or something else.
Exactly like Chinatown or Brick for anybody who wants to see a neo noir film with JGL, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's a fucking great movie, man. So, anyways, he meets with Eldon Tyrell so he can administer the Voight Comp test on a Nexus 6, which is the replicant line of the replicants that have managed to make it back to Earth. Tyrell basically says he wants to see the test fail first and asks him to administer it on his assistant, Rachel. So this test goes on much longer than most Voight Comp tests do. But at the end, Deckard, basically says that the test indicates Rachel is a replicant who believes she is a human. And this goes back to what I was talking about with the slight tweak to the...
Yep.
Tyrell basically informs Deckard that Rachel was implanted with false memories to provide like an emotional base or emotional cushion is the words used in the movie. So that's like what defines like a human, right? Like is it we're a collection of experiences and memories and stuff like that? Is that like what makes a human?
I mean, it seems to be. Otherwise, you're a baby, right?
Yeah, and I think that's like, at least at some level, that's part of what makes us human, and that is what makes Rachel much more difficult to distinguish. And I mean, she believes she's a human. So, how many films recently have touched on this like subject?
A million, like Westworld and all of that.
Westworld, Ex Machina. Oh, Ex Machina is good. We should do that.
That is good.
It is a really good movie. But yeah, so again, super influential film. So after kind of like wrapping stuff up at the Tyrell Corp, which is like such a sweet building. I love like all the architecture and the aesthetic of all of that. Like when he flies into that, it's almost like a pyramid.
Yeah.
Love a good pyramid.
That thing's badass looking.
It is badass looking. Man, a lot of the shots in this film are, like these futuristic craft kind of like floating above the cityscapes or whatever. It's just
badass.
Perfect.
Again, kind of copied by like The Fifth Element and so many other
yes,
movies,
Yes, bingo.
So many. I mean, it really set the standard. It like basically defined a whole new genre of film. I mean, you could say like Metropolis and some things came before, but
yeah,
Metropolis. This aesthetic, this idea, influence. It kind of looks like Chinese or something. He said it was influenced by Hong Kong, like a dark version of Hong Kong.
And with it taking place in LA, there's just like a lot more fusion of like,
You see Hare Krishnas and
yeah, exactly.
All sorts.
A lot more fusion of Asian culture and American culture than like what people on the East Coast probably were experiencing at large when the film came out. So, but it's got that that West Coast vibe, man.
So Tyrell, he basically is like, We want to know why they came here. Because Deckard is like, isn't it risky for them to come to Earth if they're trying to escape the colony?
Yeah.
They want to know what is their mission? What is their purpose of coming to Earth? They're on the loose, clearly dangerous, because we already saw Leon blow up the Blade Runner who was giving him the Voight Kampf test.
Yeah, it's like, why would you come to a place where you're going to be hunted? You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, after that, Deckard searches Leon's hotel room and finds like a robot snake scale, or a fake snake, like an android snake, you know.
Yep.
And then like it cuts to Roy Batty, who, if we haven't spelled out the replicants' names yet, there are four: Roy, Leon, Zora, and what's the last one? Pris. Yes. So Roy and Leon, the two male replicants, investigate an eye manufacturing lab, which is like, that's so cool. I love cryo tubes and freaking synthetic organs floating in jars. That's more of what Andrew loves. But
this part's awesome, and they basically like hold this guy hostage and like interrogate him for information about like who created them, right?
Yeah, which is J.F. Sebastian. He was
J.F. Sebastian. So he's like one of the engineers who helped design them.
Yep.
And I think at this scene they mention like they have a 4-year lifespan and they're trying to figure out how to make it longer.
Correct. So yeah, again, like the replicants learn, they talk amongst themselves, they're hyper intelligent. They figure out that they die very early. So that explains why they've come back to Earth. They're trying to basically, hold their creators at gunpoint and get them to extend their lifespan.
I mean, what would you do if you were if you found out you were a robot, or whatever, like, and I found out they had put a kill switch in me that was going to kill me after 4 years. Yeah, I mean, if you're sentient on that level, you're going to try to find out the meaning of life, try to overcome death, just like humans do.
all the human stuff, barter.
Yep.
Barter with whatever entity you can, your creator, for more time. Nothing and that's the thing, right? Like it's touching on like kind of like the biblical thoughts of like the creator and the created. And like essentially it's the exact same role-ish thing between like the Tyrell Corp or mankind at large and these synthetic beings. Like we are their creator, we made them in our image, which was made in his image. If you go that route,
pretty interesting stuff.
It is pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, after the replicants learn of Sebastian, Deckard returns back to his apartment where Rachel is waiting for him, which again, like more noir tropes. The beautiful damsel coming to the hero after specifically probably being introduced to him at the big head honcho's facility. She shows up at his private residence, and basically just tries to prove that she's human to Deckard because she was, distraught by having taken the Voight Kampf test. And she does so by showing him like a family photo, to which Deckard replies that it's actually Tyrell's niece's family photo, and that all of her memories are actually implanted memories from her. Wow.
Getting some like Total Recall type themes of implanted memories.
Yeah.
I like that stuff. I mean, you can get into simulation theory from there. Branches into a whole lot of different ideas.
Yeah, I mean, like Neuromancer to the Matrix to to fighting vipers with Black Mirror to all the rest of Black Mirror. I mean, it's common theme pretty much from this point on in sci-fi works.
So then, after he's kind of like convincing her at this point, and
She
then she asks him if he's ever taken the Voight-Kampff test,
yes,
to which he replies no.
cor-
But that's like the first indicator, maybe, that first puts the little seed of doubt in your mind, like, is he a replicant?
yeah, which
Could anyone be a replicant?
which is kind of one of the main themes of this is like, or not even themes, but like an underlying suggestion or theory, I should say theory, is that Harrison Ford, as a Blade Runner, and maybe all Blade Runners are replicants themselves.
Yes. And then she asks him, like, okay, so I am a replicant. Does that mean you're going to kill me now? Because that is his job, and she has essentially gone AWOL. In theory, like, she needs to be retired.
But he can't kill a beautiful dame like that, you know.
Exactly. He's all about it.
Yeah, I mean, she is very attractive. But she leaves in tears, which is another noir trope,
Yep.
particularly associated with this kind of scene. Um, and I guess like in tandem, Pris locates Sebastian and manipulates him to like, acts all friendly, flirty.
Yes. Pris, played by Daryl Hannah, who is also, it's worth mentioning that she is a basic pleasure model, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
And she's got some wild hair. She kind of looks, she's a great android.
She is a great, wonderful, wonderful costume design.
But you essentially see her like homeless. She's sleeping in a pile of trash, naked. And this guy stumbles along. They strike up a friendly conversation. He's a really nice, kind of shy guy. And it turns out, we find out that is JF Sebastian.
Yeah, he's a real Poindexter.
Yep. And basically it culminates with him inviting her inside, which, knowing what we know, she's manipulating him perfectly.
So, using the snake scale and some photographs found in Leon's apartment, Deckard traces down the strip club where Zora, the other female replicant, works. So, after a confrontation and a chase, Deckard shoots and kills Zora with his famous gun. So, the gun, I just want to like nerd out for a second.
Go ahead and nerd out on the gun. I was curious about that as well.
So in Fallout New Vegas, which is like one of my all-time favorite video games, you can get essentially that gun. I think it might even be called that gun.
That gun looked like it would be really hard to aim because I did notice the barrel is at like a strange angle from the handle.
Yeah, so it is called that gun. That is the name of the weapon in the game, but it is like modeled basically exactly off of Deckard's very unique cyberpunky pistol. And that gun is a pretty sweet gun, to be honest, man. I freaking used that like almost exclusively on my last playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, which I think is the best of the Fallout franchise, in my opinion. But
It's a fun one.
But at the same time, I was doing this weird like kind of like cowboy build where I just like had maxed out handguns only and like charm and some other shit or charisma. But anyways, getting way off topic there.
That's for the other podcast.
That's for the other one. Yeah. So he shoots and kills Zoro with the gun. He's ordered to retire Rachel, who is gone AWOL. So after Deckard spots Rachel like somewhere on a city street, he's ambushed by Leon. Again, the replicant who's already killed another Blade Runner.
Really weird looking dude. He is great. His performance is amazing. So he's the one at the beginning who they give the test and he like goes insane.
Yeah, and so yeah, and like here's something that like I guess is kind of the counterpoint to the Blade Runners being replicants is just like Harrison Ford just gets his ass so handedly kicked by every replicant he fights. And like maybe he's just like a weaker model or an earlier model or um
I did notice that. I could not help but notice that as well.
yeah. So but I mean like maybe it's just the Nexus 6 are just that much better than whatever model he was.
Well, they're for mining, but you would think the Blade Runners, basically the ones who are there to keep all the other androids in check, in theory would be pretty strong, you know?
Yeah. But again, maybe he was just an earlier model. Or maybe they intentionally made him weaker so they didn't figure out that they're replicants. I mean, they're it's not like a total debunk of it, but it is worth noting. So, yeah, Leon is about to kill Deckard after handedly beating his ass. And Rachel...
And out of nowhere.
Yeah, Rachel saves him by using Deckard's gun, to kill Leon. I really like that gun, man. So after that, they return to Deckard's place.
Where basically he pulls some moves on the sexy robot girl and teaches her how to kiss.
Yeah.
Just let that awkwardness just sink in.
That's... hadn't really ever thought about that. I mean,
he's like, this is how you kiss. And then he kisses her, and then it's like, all right, he's going to fuck her.
he restrains her. It's very forced, too, but, like, I guess she's into it,
Robot love. I'm all about some robot love. Why not, man? Why not let them fornicate? Interestingly enough, I was at my buddy's like studio the other day, and they had like 9 3D printers, and he just like made the offhand joke like, yeah, they print themselves, but he wasn't joking. They actually print themselves, which I guess that's like robots fornicating.
I guess
self-reproduction. Anyway,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Why would you give a robot a dick? It's a little...
For pleasure.
A little excessive.
For pleasure models, dude.
Oh, yeah, the pleasure models. Yeah, sure.
You're going to have male ones, too. It's not just going to be females.
That's a good point.
Probably bring about the end of man. Anyways, upon arriving at Sebastian's apartment, Roy basically tells Pris that all the other replicants are dead. Which is true. 2 of them have now been whacked.
And at some point you find out that Jeff Sebastian has like a weird aging disease, like the movie Jack, where he's 25, but he looks like he's like in his 50s or something.
Yeah.
So he kind of like relates to the androids and their shortened lifespan and like thinks he's their friend and is sympathetic to them.
Correct.
And you could tell he's just like a lonely, weird dude who was very happy to have some robot friends.
Yeah, well, he designed them.
And he also, like it's worth mentioning, like, his little workshop that he lives in is full of, like, these creepy clown robots and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, like, more primitive robots or AIs, but they are creepy and weird. Like, maybe racist, one of them, I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah. But it's a very weird guy. So
exactly, and basically Roy is like basically holds this dude hostage. JF Sebastian's like, take us to Tyrell.
So yeah, they go to Tyrell's penthouse, which again, super super sweet. Like if I was a tech trillionaire in the future, I would have a place built up just like this. Pretty much an exact clone of it.
This part's cool. So, like, Roy, his only mission right now is to meet his maker and presumably live a longer life. But when he approaches Tyrell, he calls him father, and there's all these kind of biblical overtones, and it's really interesting. And then essentially he's like, I've done questionable things, father. And Tyrell kind of like comforts him and is like, you're the top model. You've done so much. You're literally my pride. I take so much pride in my creation of you that you can like do no wrong in my eyes, my son.
So then Roy gives Tyrell a smoochy boochies,
Yeah, that part was uncomfortable.
and then he kills him.
And then he kills him. He starts just kissing him on the lips, and then like breaks it, then like smashes in his eyeballs.
Yep, freaking destroys his like. It's real similar to that Game of Thrones death.
Then when the mountain kills the little dancing guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
the
Just
dancing
crush
guy.
his skull with your bare hands. Yeah, I forget what that guy's name was.
I
Doesn't matter.
I almost said striking vipers, but that's we already said that in this episode. It's that Black Mirror episode.
No, yeah.
Red Viper? I don't know. Whatever. Guy whose head gets freaking popped like a Gallagher melon by
Good Gallagher reference.
good guy. Yeah.
Pretty sure that'll be lost on basically everyone.
Well, hopefully not. I mean, Chappelle's show made fun of it, so maybe somebody will know.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
That show that's 20 years old.
So Sebastian runs for the elevator after watching Tyrell get crushed. And then the next scene is Roy like riding the elevator alone, which is
Yep.
later confirmed that Sebastian is dead.
He killed them all.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't help him. I mean, Tyrell basically told him, I can't help you. Like, we made you as best as we could, which, seems to be a lie, but who knows?
Yeah. Also, I
He
mean,
gives-
something to like note about Tyrell's death. I mean, that's like the creation killing the creator. So, you could draw some ties to Frankenstein. You could absolutely draw some ties to Prometheus in the end of that film.
Interesting. And it's almost kind of an Oedipal thing,
Yeah,
Fuck the mother, kill the father.
exactly.
Yep.
Or I guess Prometheus and then whatever its sequel was. What was it, Alien Resurrection?
I don't know if I saw the...
It's
that
good. It's
one.
good. You should watch it. One with Danny McBride in it. Anyways, it's good. You should watch it.
All right, I'll check it out.
Everyone should watch it if you haven't.
I
watched
enjoyed Prometheus. I like the Alien series.
it. Yeah, I love the aliens. Again, Ridley Scott. It's all coming back together, man. It's all
Ridley Scott with an H.R. Giger aesthetic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love H.R. Giger. I mean, it's so weird, but anyways. So back at Sebastian's apartment, Deckard is ambushed by Pris, but he kills her basically as like Roy returns. As their bodies start to die because that's why they're here. They were at death's doorstep and they were trying to plead for more time. Roy's body begins to fail. He basically chases Deckard, through this like prolonged chase scene, like through building up onto a roof. Then
Yeah, this is like the big climax, right?
yeah, so Deckard again, the whole like thing that he's at a minimum a weaker, shittier replicant. Deckard tries to jump and like doesn't make it or barely makes it and is like hanging on for his life.
Yeah, that part.
And Roy's body is failing, and he like effortlessly clears it.
Yeah, Roy is he is at the end of his lifespan, just coincidentally right at this very moment.
So as Deckard's about to fall, Roy hoists him onto the roof to save him, and like right before Roy, it's like a kind of final benevolent act, which is nice, because I guess like outside of him killing other replicants, which is his job. It's not like he's the one who programmed him with a shitty 4-year lifespan.
Sure, it's almost like Roy finally became fully human right at that last moment of his life, with like a benevolent, empathetic act.
Yeah. So, there's the big monologue that Roy does, the whole how his memories will be lost in time, like tears and sun. I've seen fires off the belt of Orion, which is a sweet monologue.
It's a sweet monologue. By the way, Roy played by Rutger Hauer, who is awesome.
So, he expires in the rain up on the roof. Very, 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 very noir. Basically, after that, I mean, we're like, the movie is done. We're wrapping it up. Gaff arrives and shouts to Deckard about Rachel, saying it's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does? So again, he's harboring a fugitive replicant, which is counter to what he should be doing.
Right. He's essentially going against his programming. He's kind of gone AWOL at that moment. And Gaff, it's worth noting that Gaff, he's just like the muscle. He's the guy who always finds Deckard and like basically tells him what to do. Yeah. And also going to this part, it's interesting because throughout the movie, whenever they show Gaff, he's like a creepy looking guy. He's always playing with origami. And the very last scene of the film, and at least the final cut, Harrison Ford finds this origami unicorn that's been left by Gaff, presumably. And we didn't talk about it, but earlier in the film, Deckard had a dream about a unicorn. And so this is like another clue from the director, like, oh, maybe Gaff is trying to tell him, oh, I know what your dreams are because we implanted them in you.
Yeah, you are a replicant. And there's some other shots of like the Voight comp test earlier on that I think that like kind of make it clear that there's a possibility that he is a replicant.
Later on, Ridley Scott said, yes, that was his intention. And I'm not actually sure if he was a replicant in the original novel or not. But, yeah. So I probably shouldn't talk about that.
Yeah, I actually don't know either. But for what it's worth, Harrison Ford said that he did not think Deckard is a replicant, but he fucking wouldn't.
Yeah, he was. He said that was like his least favorite movie that he made. He hates it.
Yeah, such fucking.
Everyone hated Ridley Scott, and Harrison Ford and Sean Young, who plays Rachel, hated each other. So it's like there's all this tension on set, and all this chaos. And out of all these rewrites and all of this stuff, and out of all of that becomes a masterpiece. You know, it's almost like an analogy would be like the Beatles all fighting and then coming out with like Abbey Road or something. You know,
Sure.
It's like out of that attention arises something that like transcends.
So back to Harrison Ford. You know, saying that he isn't a human. He claims that he and Ridley Scott had discussions confirming that Deckard was a human. Ridley Scott has confirmed the opposite in many interviews, saying that Deckard is a replicant. And, like, I don't know.
He may have told him that just
to shut him up, to get him back on set fucking working.
Or just control how he acts the part, you know?
Sure.
Like, I do not want him acting like a robot.
Yeah, absolutely.
At any time.
Yeah, so just keep it from him. Kind of like how they kept Ridley's gender anonymous, like in the screenplay for Alien, you know?
Ah, interesting.
Yep. Because they didn't want it to be cast one sort of way, or, you know, and they wanted to get it, you know, pushed through, and at the time they were worried a female lead in a sci-fi action horror film wouldn't pass. Or they would try to like gender the role more, and they wanted the role to be super non-gendered, so they just like made no reference to the gender
Very interesting.
at all. So, you know, and also Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to this, which came out in 2017,
which I really liked. That I thought
great.
that kicked ass.
Great, awesome.
I only saw it one time, but I'd watch it again.
Awesome movie to watch in 4K. You know, if you've got a 4K television, it's worth it.
Yeah, the special effects in that are phenomenal.
But I feel like it's 100% freaking confirmed in that movie that Harrison Ford's a replicant, right? Like,
okay.
You know, not to spoil it, fuck. I mean, if you haven't seen it, fuck. But, like, whatever. We're telling you Harrison Ford.
Whatever. This movie's like 40 years old.
That one's 40. The other one's 4, you know. And again, the director has said in interviews, I'm not, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whatever, man. Whatever. So
and who directed the new Blade Runner movie?
Denis Villeneuve.
Exactly, and he's also directing the new Dune film.
Which is sweet.
So there's just so many tie-ins with Dune, basically.
Everything Dennis has done has been pretty much fantastic, in my opinion.
I
Especially,
haven't seen Enemy, but that one's on my list. Have you seen that one?
I actually haven't either. Maybe
All right,
we
we
do
both got to
Enemy.
watch that one. It
Yeah.
looks really good.
So the movie though, to bring it all together, or not all together, but to end it. Basically, we talked about the origami unicorn, which was again the unicorn scene was cut from the original theatrical release. But Deckard and Rachel are seen leaving their like apartment block or whatever. So presumably,
It ends really. Even the final cut, I still didn't really like the ending that much. They could. I still don't think they totally got it right. It ends kind of suddenly. It's like a Sopranos ending almost, where it's
Well-
like, what's gonna happen?
well, and that's fine in my opinion. And like again, there's a sequel, so like what happens is canon at this point. And
Sure.
I won't talk about it because I won't spoil the movie anymore. But you know, it beats the hell out of the happy ending. So now that we're at the end, we're gonna come back to the happy ending, and I'm gonna rail on it about how fucking stupid it is and how it doesn't make any sense at all for just like a few seconds.
All right, do it. Let it out.
Okay, so the happy ending again shows them like clearly escaping off into the sunset. It has the really really bad narration at the end. So just moments before in this movie, Gaff had said, "Too bad she won't live," which makes so much sense, like thematically with the film and with what we know about Rachel, and what maybe we're putting together about Deckard. It's like the time is numbered, right?
And he also says, but then again, who does? It's kind of,
Which
it
is-
even suggests that it's a broader idea.
Sure. I mean, we all got an expiration date. But in this stupid narration, as they venture off into the mountains of unused Shining footage, Deckard says that Gaff was wrong and that Rachel had like a special programming that didn't cause her to have the Methuselah syndrome and die early. And it's like you're fucking retconning what somebody said, like just to have a dumb happy ending because some studio exec jackass thought that like this movie was too dark for the American audience or whatever, or
Interesting.
or too unresolved or whatever, and that they needed this like happy with a bow on it storybook ending that doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's my TED talk on it.
I mean, I feel like it could go either way, It seems like Tyrell, when he created her in the image of his niece and implanted his niece's memories, she's not like a production model, anything that could be possible,
But then, like, why have the line where Gaff says, her time is going to expire?
Well, that's a good question. Who knows? It's a good question. And I mean, we don't know what happened to them in the end. We never find out if Deckard's lifespan is short or whenever. That's never confirmed or denied, I don't believe.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe you think it's more forgivable. I think it's terrible. A lot of people think it's terrible.
I mean, I haven't seen it. It sounds terrible, but I also I didn't think the ending. I mean, I love that final scene, but I still thought this ending was abrupt and kind of weird too. But maybe I need to check out the other 6 and decide which one I like. I don't know.
I mean, some
Maybe
of
I'll
them
create
are
a
going to
petition to bring that one back to Netflix.
These are going to be hard to find unless you buy like they had like an ultimate box package that I think had like
I bet they're on
5 of them.
YouTube.
Maybe
They're not on YouTube.
Maybe they might be on YouTube. It's really hard to find unmolested Star Wars.
Oh man, it really is, dude.
Yeah, a few years ago, many years ago, a friend of mine had found or pirated a copy of this restored version of the original footage. So like a group of people had compiled all these original, like VHS or Laserdisc or whatever the fuck
Interesting.
they had that hadn't had all of George Lucas's, idiotic tinkerings.
So they digitally restored it in the proper way, is what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Without adding in like shitty CGI.
So it was like a super high, high quality, like high video quality, high-ish audio quality, original set of the trilogy, and that was pretty sweet. I wish he had it on. I wish I could buy it on DVD. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I would spend the money and buy that on DVD.
Yeah, I mean, restoring it, if you can like put it in HD, I'm all for that. But going back and like adding stuff, it's too much, man.
Dude, and it just looks so bad, man. Like, oh, the 90s CGI looks terrible. Making Han shoot second is stupid. It's stupid and lame.
It is stupid and lame.
It's stupid.
Well, anyway, we'll save our hatred for those for another one.
Because we're talking about a movie that we love, even though we talked about an ending that I hate for a second. But yeah, I mean, man, that's Blade Runner. We could have gone on for hours about just like the aesthetic alone of this film. And I think we did like a healthy touch on all of it, but it's a masterpiece.
It is.
Even if you've seen it before, you should go watch it.
It set the template for basically so many science fiction movies to follow in its footstep, along with basically all of Philip K. Dick's writings. But especially the visual aesthetic of this film cannot be, it's the shit.
It is the shit.
And on that note, watch the movie if you haven't seen it. Thanks for listening to Far Out Flicks.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, send us an email, find our actual addresses, do whatever you want. But we would love
not find our addresses.
I would here to hear from some people. We're gonna try and work some guest anchors, hosts, whatever we are in here in the future.
I think that'd be fun. Nice change of pace.
Yeah.
People get tired of listening to us all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
As for that, signing out from Far Out Flicks. Catch you next time.
See ya.